God 90 Radio on Demand. My name is Jerry Mitchell, your host for Give God 90. Thank you so much for joining me for just a little while today. The last several now episodes of this podcast, I've kind of been focusing on our response to evil and sin, and, well, the best way I know to put it is people who just aren't really thinking. I'm going to go a different way today. I've spent a lot of time doing some kind of negative type stuff. Let's talk about something positive. I think that's a good idea. Let's talk about something positive. And I do this for a couple of reasons, okay? While I think it is important that we know how to respond to the bad stuff, we really need to continue to focus on our primary mission, our primary goal. What is our reason for believing what we believe? Now, it doesn't matter to me whether you are Jew, whether you are Christian. If you accept the Almighty, the Creator of the universe, as the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, your primary function, your primary goal should be the same. Now, I know Christians are going to say, well, my primary goal is winning hearts and souls for Jesus Christ. No, it's not. Okay? I hate to break it to you this way. That is not your primary function. Your primary function is exactly the same because of what Christians understand Jesus to have said in the Gospel of Matthew, and I believe in the Gospel of Luke. He always said, his primary message was, repent, right? Repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. That's your primary function. To take that message, and because that is the gospel that was delivered to the saints. That is exactly the same gospel that was offered in the desert at Mount Sinai. That is exactly the same gospel that has always been. It wasn't, we've got to win hearts and souls for Jesus. That's not your primary function. Your primary function is to carry that message of repentance. Live the way you were designed by your Creator to live. That is what was offered, in Exodus chapter 19. If you will, what? Hear my voice and obey my commands. I will be your God. You will be my people. I will make you a nation of priests. What message are you going to carry if you are a nation of priests? Isn't about what's going to happen at some point in the future. It is about how to live right now. Now, having said that, what I want to focus on is actually found in the New Testament. To my Jewish listeners, don't get nervous about this, because here you're going to see me do something I like to do. I've done it before. I'm going to do it again. Okay? I'm going to take this right straight back to where, excuse me for just a second, I'm having a little technical difficulty here, and I'm going to leave that part in, believe it or not. I'm going to leave that part in because I need to, because you need to know that when I do this, I have problems too, all right? But I'm going to take it right straight back to the original spot where it comes from. All right? Now, let's get going here. I want to look at what Christians commonly call the fruit of the Spirit. Now, to explain what this fruit is, the fruit is nothing more than a manifestation. It is what you leave behind. It's, you can't pick love off of a tree, right? You just can't do it. But what you have expressed with love is expressed many different ways. You don't see the love, but you see the result of love, right? And again, you've heard me say this before if you've been listening to me any length of time. And for everyone who is new, don't forget to download the Give God 90 app, because if I reference something that happened in the past, you can go back and look that up in one of the past podcasts, and you can listen to that and hopefully get an understanding of it. And that app is, by the way, absolutely free, and it is for your Apple or your Android device. So, advertisement over, let's keep going. You can look at the result of love. You can't see love like we can see, let's say, music. We can hear music. If you can read music, you can look at the score, the notes on the sheet, and you can see music, right? But what we can't see this fruit we call love. We can't see necessarily joy, unless you happen to be named Joy, and it's a common name in the United States. If you look in the mirror, then you can see joy. But typically, the type of joy we're talking about here, you can't see it because you see the expression on someone's face. You see someone's attitude. You can see, it may be a joyous attitude, it may be a joyous expression on their face, but you can't see joy. So these things that we call fruit of the Spirit are not always going to be something you can grab your hand around. It's not always going to be something you can take a picture of. But they do exist. They are part of our physical universe, just not always physical. Now, in Galatians 5:22, we see that the fruit of the Spirit is the love, joy, peace, patience, the kindness or gentleness, the goodness, or the faith. Sometimes self-control is stuck in there. And you've heard me talk about the opposite of those in the past. I don't remember exactly the name of that podcast off the top of my head right now, but I have spoken about that. And today I want to look at this maybe even just a little bit different than what you might be expecting. Let me start in Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 8, where it reads, "The end of the matter is better than the beginning." That's something odd for Solomon to say, but he uses that term often. And he continues that a patient spirit is better than a proud spirit. Don't let your spirit rush to be angry. Anger abides in the heart of fools. And I'll let you continue with that on your own I encourage you to go read Ecclesiastes 7, okay? Solomon puts a lot of good things in there together that I'm not going to have time to get into today, because I want to go on just a little bit to Jeremiah 33 and look at that. Now, in Jeremiah 33, beginning in verse 6, he says, "Yet I will certainly bring health and healing, and I will indeed heal them. I will let them experience the abundance of peace and truth." What Jeremiah is getting at here, and I encourage you to go read this, okay? Because what he's getting at and what he's talking about is how, the things that you leave behind, okay? Think about Jeremiah and his life as he's laying this out. These prophets said these things, and what they said, quite honestly, what they said was usually going to have them killed. Usually what happened to them was they would say what they say, and sometimes they would provoke the kings and the people that they were talking to the point where they just had enough and they couldn't take it anymore. So that what they would do then is kill the prophet. And what was the prophet's message? Well, the prophet's message was exactly what Jesus was telling this new group of believers to go do. It was to tell them to repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Let's look at Psalm 1, verse 3. He says, he's like a tree planted beside streams of water that bears its fruit in season, whose leaf does not wither. Whatever he does prospers. Now, here we're talking about fruit of the Spirit. It's kind of easy to see the cross-reference here in this. But what we're looking at, quite honestly, is if you are the tree planted in that living water, that you know, let's face this way, Christians are going to know this cross-reference. Some Jews aren't, where Yeshua stands, it says he's the living water. He's a tree planted beside or in the streams of water. Look, you're going to grow. You're going to do things. And it says that your fruit will bear in season, when it is needed. When is your time to be harvested? Sometimes people don't really know. And I know that's kind of hard to say, or I should say hard to hear, but people don't always know when they're ripe. That's kind of a weird way to say it, I know, but it's true. It's true. They don't really always know when they're ripe. Let's go to Psalm 92, verse 14. They will still bear fruit in old age, healthy and green. Now, just because you don't know when you're ripe doesn't mean that the people around you don't know when you're ripe. You might think that what you say, what you do doesn't matter. But that's not true. Everything you say, every interaction you have with other people matters. It demonstrates to them what your character is. And if you leave behind in your wake, in other words, where you've been, if you leave behind evidence of love, of joy, of peace, then what you're going to do is you have just witnessed to everyone you have been around. Now, again, the opposite of that, if you leave hate, if you leave upset, if you leave chaos, if you leave quick-tempered, that is the opposite of all of these things. Don't let that be your witness. Don't let those things be what people see in you. We should all, hopefully everybody who listens to this, should be looking towards, when they walk away from a group of people, either for the last time or for a short time, you might be leaving work or leaving school, going somewhere else. Maybe you're leaving the grocery store. You should try to leave behind some semblance of what the Almighty wants you to leave behind. When you speak to a checkout person in a store, if they're checking you out, I think I've said this before, I hate those very impersonal self-checkout things. I don't like using them. I don't like using them for a lot of reasons. One of the reasons is you don't have the opportunity to leave anything behind. And it really, and I'm going to say this jokingly, this is me being sarcastic, okay? They don't pay me enough to work in that store. I shouldn't have to check myself out, right? So a few free things, no, I don't really do that. Tempted, yes, don't really do that because I don't use those things. I try to make sure that I go through a line where people are. I've actually walked to the other end of the store to do this, to make sure that I check out where people are. And I try to interact with the people who are working there in such a way that when I leave, they have a smile on their face. They're laughing. Myra and I walked into a grocery store the other night, and the person who was checking us out, you could tell it had been a long day. And honestly, working with the public all the time, is not always pleasant, because you run across people who well, let's just say it this way: they enjoy being miserable, and they like to spread that misery around. We should be doing just the opposite. We should be, instead of spreading misery, spreading joy around, right? We should be leaving people more cheerful than when we first interacted with them. And that's what we did. It was this person, actually, I think, or he acted, I should say, like he enjoyed that 2 minutes we were there while he was checking us out and we were interacting. And it didn't have to be any deep, meaningful conversation. It was just lighthearted silliness about fruits and vegetables. Yes, you can have a lighthearted conversation about fruits and vegetables that leave a smile on people's face and let them know that your witness is such that you want them to feel appreciated. You want them to feel that you have interacted with them on a personal level. You don't have to be best friends. You don't have to understand their greatest, whatever. You simply have to let them know they're appreciated. Let them know they're good people. Okay? Now, when we think back, and again, for my Christian friends, my Jewish friends, when you take these things that are in what's considered to be the New Testament, and you can look back and you can see where they're coming from, then you have this better understanding of what you are to be doing. Okay? And one of the criticisms I have with the modern Christian churches is all they want to do part of the time, okay, is get people in the pews. They want to see numbers. They think, and not every church is like this, and I'm generalizing, I know, and I should be more careful at this. But for the most part, a lot of modern Christian pastors, they believe that their job is to acquire numbers. I don't really think that numbers, large numbers, is what the Bible was talking about. Especially when Yeshua himself said that there's not going to be a whole lot of people that get through the gate. He says, narrow is the way, and few find it. Now, if few are going to find it, why are these modern Christian pastors looking for these huge numbers? I know, and I'm not going to go there with this. But let's face it. What Yeshua was looking for, what the Almighty's looking for, are those people who are willing to follow His instructions. They are willing to put others ahead of themselves. They are willing, even when they have to walk into a situation where somebody might be a little upset, a little angry, hopefully they can leave them smiling. They can improve their day simply by letting them know, hey, you know what? Somebody at least appreciates what you're doing. Somebody understands it's not easy. Somebody realizes you have problems too. You're here. You're doing your job. Want to let you know you're doing good. That's what people want to hear. When you can leave somebody, with a little bit of silliness sometimes, with a little bit of love in their heart, with a little bit of joy on their face, with a little bit, of their faith, even if it's just their faith in humanity restored. That not everybody is miserable. Not everybody loves misery. Not everybody wants to take advantage of somebody else. But there are people out there who are willing to smile, say hi, wherever the conversation might lead from there. That's what they're looking for. That's what people are missing. And that's what we're missing when we, interact with those, for lack of a better word, stupid self-checkout robots that I absolutely despise. You don't get that interaction. Now, in all honesty, if somebody were to take a picture of me checking out, I have used them under duress, okay? When I was in a huge hurry, I had one item in my hand that I needed from the grocery store. There were lines backed up. Yes, I have used them in that situation, and I hated it. But I was in a huge hurry. Everything was not going my way. I needed somebody at that point to smile at me and say, hey, it's okay. And I didn't get it from that crazy, stupid robot checkout thing, all right? That's when I needed somebody to say, something silly to me, to leave a smile on my face. Because things hadn't, I have bad days some days, I'll be honest with you. But really, when we have the opportunity to leave something behind that, that nobody can pick up in their hand, that nobody can take a picture of, we leave something behind not tangible, but more important. We leave something behind not laying on a counter. We leave something behind laying deep inside someone's heart. We leave something behind laying against their soul. We leave something behind that they can't see, but they can tell others about. We leave something behind that they can't sell for profit, but they can give it away. Let me say that part again. We leave something behind that they cannot sell for profit, but they can certainly give it away. Because even if they give it away, they're still going to have their share of it. When we can leave that love, that joy, that peace, that patience, that kindness, that goodness, and that faithfulness, when we can leave that behind, nobody can pick it up and carry it around. Nobody can sell it. All you can do with it is give it away. That will let them know who's been in their presence. That will let them know that somebody just treated them like a human being. That will let them know not everyone, not every part of humanity is bad. There are people out there who are willing to follow the Creator's instructions. There are people out there who are willing to treat each other the way they want to be treated. You don't have to hug on them. You don't have to love on them. You don't have to do all that. Something as simple as a silly conversation is a seed planted. Maybe it's a seed watered. Somebody else will come along and harvest it. Somebody else will come along and do something else. Somebody else hopefully will come along and bring them just a little bit farther, and a little bit farther, and a little bit farther. You don't have to do all the work. You just have to do your share. Right? I look out every once in a while, and not too far from my home, there is a section in the middle of the road where a group plants flowers, and they take care of these flowers. And usually when you see these people out there, there's 7 or 8 of them out there. Very rarely have I ever gone out and seen one person. Typically, and at the time I did see one person, there wasn't a whole lot to do, okay? But they were out, these people are out there, and they're trying to make this little section of this road look good, as it's the entrance to the town. Now, nobody could do that on their own. Well, I guess they could, but it'd be a whole lot of work. When it comes time to being a witness, you don't have to be the only witness in the world. You just have to do your part. A lot of times we get confused because Paul writes that Apollo waters and the water and the planting and all this kind of stuff. Don't get hung up sometimes on that biblical talk. Go ahead and think about it other ways. You don't have to be the one who trims the plant. You can't trim all the plants in the orchard. Because it's a huge orchard. You don't need to be the only one to trim the trees. You don't need to be the one who harvests all the fruit. You don't need to be the one who does all the watering. You do your part. Because when we all do our part, there's going to be another one that comes along, and takes care of the next step. There's going to be somebody else that comes. You don't just because you're a good planter doesn't mean you're a good harvester. Just because you're a good harvester doesn't mean you know how much water something needs. Right? What we leave behind, somebody else has the opportunity to receive. What we leave behind, somebody else sometimes has the opportunity to cause it to grow. What we leave behind, somebody else quite often has the chance to watch and see that particular fruit ripen on another vine. Sometimes, and I really have to be very careful how I say this, pollination's important, right? Because without that pollination, you don't get fruit. You don't get the quality of things you need to get. So sometimes you need to leave a little more of something behind than you normally would. Sometimes it's just a little bit of silliness. Sometimes it is a little bit of knowledge. Sometimes it's more than that. But really, what we're leaving behind is our witness. What we're leaving behind is our hope. What we're leaving behind is should be that love, that joy, that peace. So that whoever we're leaving it with can smile and show that expression on their face that they enjoy life. They can have that expression and that patience. They can have that expression, that patience, and they can show that kindness. And then they can have that goodness, and hopefully it leads to faith. All of that has to work together. But it all starts sometimes with something as simple as how are y'all doing today? There's a good Southern expression, right? How y'all doing? Sometimes, it's a hello. Sometimes it's a hi. Sometimes it's just a smile and a nod of your head. And sometimes it's those avocados could have been a whole lot better today. Ladies and gentlemen, what I'm really saying is let your witness be spreadable, okay? Let them make it so that somebody can take your witness and use it again. Call it repurposing if you want to, however you want to express that. But let whatever you leave, let somebody else give away. Let somebody else give it away because it's worth it. It's worth it. Ladies and gentlemen, I really hope you have enjoyed this little bit of a message today in how to leave behind something so valuable that it starts really in Genesis. I didn't go back that far, but it starts in Genesis and it will continue throughout eternity. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful week.